We're going to go ahead and start, as we always do, with our best bets. And this is going to be a fun one because it's obviously in the news. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Donovan Mitchell trade as the Cleveland Cavaliers trade Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Akbay Abaji, and multiple first-round picks and multiple first-round swaps to the Utah Jazz. They get Donovan Mitchell. Really big trade. Let's talk about the line real quick. This opened when the season win totals opened. It opened 41.5, and you bet it and have taken several victory laps about getting that number because you think you predicted the Donovan Mitchell trade. Not really, but you thought it was at least within the realm of possibility they would get an upgrade. I also actually took the 41.5. For as much shit as I've given you over victory lapping, I too did grab the 41.5 when these lines first came out. That's in the app. So I too have that number. That's not helpful for you, the listener. That number's gone because obviously after the Mitchell trade, it jumped. The best lines available right now, 46.5 is an over at -110 at DraftKings. There's a 48.5 under if you're interested in fading the market reaction over at PointsBet. That's going to be the best value for you there. So a 46.5 over versus a 48.5 under. We don't see a lot of these 2-game differentials. Obviously, a lot of this leading into Donovan Mitchell. I'll give you like bullet points on my thoughts on the Donovan Mitchell trade, and then we'll get Brandon's thoughts and his projections. This is a perfect trade for them. It's just a perfect trade for them. Their problem was offense. Mitchell is way more of an offensive engine than people really gave him credit for because of he had a little bit of a down season last year, which I think is okay. He still is one of the best 3-point volume scorers in the NBA. Coming off of picks from Jared Allen and Evan Mobley with their rim gravity, he will have lots of opportunity to shoot those. If he does not take those and they blitz him, Mitchell is a good enough passer to hit those guys and really generate good offense. He didn't pass as much as he can the last couple of years. I attribute a lot of that to the tension between him and Rudy Gobert. They would deny that. I will just tell you that when I watch, Donovan Mitchell is not incapable of passing. Donovan Mitchell was choosing to play the way he did. Now, maybe he takes that same approach in Cleveland, but even so, that still raises their offensive ceiling, the area of highest concern, so much. This was a painful trade. They lost several key pieces. But when you really look at the year over year, they really just lost Markkanen, who was very good, but Sexton was out last year. Agbaji obviously was not on the team. So really what they lost was Markkanen, who was very good, but Donovan Mitchell's value is obviously going to be significantly higher in a game-by-game and wins perspective than Donovan Mitchell. It makes life easier for Evan Mobley. It makes life easier for Jared Allen. It makes life easier for Darius Garland, who was so good last year. There are pressure points on this team, which we'll talk about, but this was a home run trade for the Cavs. They're going to be really good. I don't have a best bet on this game, on this win total, rather, at 46.5. I leaned over at that number, but if you ask me at 48.5, I'm probably going to say maybe a slight lean to the under. I don't have a play on this, but I know that you do, Brandon. What are your thoughts on the Donovan Mitchell trade first before we get into your projection?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing you need to remember with Donovan Mitchell is this dude literally just came off a season where he was the best offensive player. I don't know about best player, but best offensive player and the engine of the league's #1 offense in an era predicated on offense. That does not mean he did everything. He didn't. There's a lot that happened there. Basketball is a team game, but it's pretty good if you are the best offensive player on the best offense in the best offensive era in history. That seems good. So I think it's fair to wonder about how does this work in a playoff setting? I think it's fair to wonder about long-term trajectory. Neither of those is our focus today. We'll do that plenty of times. What I think that's very sure about Donovan Mitchell is that he significantly raises the floor in the regular season right now, because the thing that the Cavaliers lacked was offense. They've got the defense there. We'll talk about how all the pieces fit together. But as much as I was high on Cleveland and had that early number and everything else, the one bugaboo was, man, the offense is not great. It's pretty much Darius Garland. And I texted you at one point, like, man, if Garland gets hurt, we're really in trouble on this Cavs 41.5 that we got. Donovan Mitchell changes the equation of that, because now you have two offensive hubs. And in the NBA, in the regular season especially, having two guys instead of one is a big, big deal. So I want to do projections here. And I'm going to give you two projections because I had my numbers written in ink already from before the trade and now have them after. And I think it's helpful to kind of see where things were and where they're at now. So I had the Cavs previously at 20th offensively. I have them at 14th now. That doesn't seem like a huge swing, but that's a big difference in floor from being a team where you're bottom 10 to, okay, you're around league average. Defensively, it didn't move at all. I had them at fourth. I have them at fourth right now. I think the ceiling wasn't quite as high as people maybe hoped before. The floor is maybe a little lower now. We'll get to that. Here's where I have the win range. This is the key. Before the trade, I had them 44 to 52. So a little bit higher variance, but all like easy play from that 41 and a half. Right now, the ceiling hasn't changed. My top end is 54, only up from 52, but I've gone 48 to 54 now. So that bottom, the floor moved up. So I still have 48 to 54 wins. I'm still over all the 46 and a half outcomes here. So this is a best bet for me. I like the over. This is, if you are a fresh bettor, this has nothing to do with the 41 and a half. If you are coming in clean, 46 and a half, I like the over here.
Yeah, so there's two ways to think about this, which is like you're not getting the best of the number because it was 41 and a half. No, that was an entirely different team.
Different team.
Like the three rotation players with like Baji, Sexton, and Markkanen that are now gone, and a star player that has been added. Like this is an entirely different makeup as far as what the win total should be. So the question is whether or not the over is valuable there. I get why it's an over for you, still best bet at 46 and a half. I get it should be noted. You're probably not going to bet this again with the 41 and a half, are you?
Yeah, I'm not because I already have the 41 and a half. But right. for the new listener today, like if you have the 41 and a half, you're looking like, well, do I hedge? Do I take the other side? No, you just take the ticket that you are glad. Look, we lucked into it. I thought there was a move to be made. I did not think Donovan Mitchell was coming to this team. Let's just be real. Just ride that ticket out. Don't make more moves. Don't complicate it. But if you're new and you're saying, okay, I didn't do NBA in the summer. Here I am today. What's my bet? I still like the bet right now because it's a new team. So you're playing the new number.
The seeding for this team, which is up at DraftKings, the over-under is 6.5, which is, I think that's high. The under is minus 135. I will probably put in a bet on the under and pay the juice on the minus 135 here. If they win 47 games, this still goes under by a half or over by a half win, right? I could see them being the 6th seed at 46. That feels a little low, right? If you tell me, like, are the Cavs going to win 46 or more games? Probably to the over. I just don't think I'm so married to the prior in this range that I want to go ahead and get in at 46 and a half.
Yeah.
If you're wondering about, like, okay, this all sounds great, but what's like the downside? I got a trend for you. I've been doing these 10-year trends. Teams that won fewer than 25 games in a season and then went over 500 the following season, the next year are 4-1 to the under. That's a very small sample. It's only 5 teams. The one over team was the Warriors, who had that one tank season. So you can really contextually throw out the Warriors. That's 4-0 to the under. Again, it's 4 examples, right? So like not a lot of history here. I think more telling, though, is that only 4 teams have done this, which leads into the question of whether or not this was an outlier season from them. One of the reasons I had the Cavs under was I was just like, this team does not, like, everything looks different a year later. Darius Garland made a leap. That's sustainable and has to matter. Darius Garland is good now. I liked Darius Garland before, but not enough to take the over. Jared Allen fit perfectly, was an all-star last year. Evan Mobley is a transcendent player. He is we talked about him on several awards episodes. He is one of the most impactful players. We'll talk more about him in a second. The 3 big look worked. That's no longer the case. It does make more intuitive sense that Mitchell would work better, but it's a different combination. We just don't know. Bickerstaff, JB Bickerstaff, who I like a lot as a person, and everyone I know in the league loves him and is so happy that he had success last year, and I thought should have been coach of the year. If I had to vote, I would vote for JB Bickerstaff.
Me too.
He's only gone over 1 year on his win total. That was last year. Now, a lot of his were interim opportunities. So it's a little bit different. Still, we don't have this is not a coach that we have a grand history of consistently hitting the over. We give a lot of credit to Evan Mobley. I want to try and put some of this in context. 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists on 51% shooting from the field, 25% from 3, 66% from the line. Mobley's a guy that stands out on film and stands out in the advanced metrics. His overall production isn't great. Again, we circle back to, but they have Donovan Mitchell, who's going to be able to provide a lot of that production increase. It's just something I do think we should talk about. It's probably likely that we overstate Evan Mobley a little bit in the NBA internet circles because we're all kind of competing to be the one that likes Evan Mobley the most. And so I think there's like a little bit of, even if I think he's awesome, that conversation probably gets a little bit beyond on Mobley. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Yeah, so, I think the hype on Mobley, everyone sees the potential. We all agree that there is massive high potential, that he could be a truly great player. So then everyone wants to be on the corner of Mobley Island so that when he does become that someday, potentially, you can be like, I said it. I was the one. I had the Mobley ticket early on. We all have the Mobley ticket. We all see it. We all like him.
Yeah. So that's part of this. The jump in wins, I've done a lot of research that actually says that your actual win total versus your Pythagorean is a better indicator, but the Cavs Pythagorean was pretty online because they were way high early or way low early because they were so much better than the record was, and then they were less and all these kind of things. It kind of just shakes out in the end. Like Cleveland had minus 1.8 Pythagorean win differential. That does cross the threshold of 75th percentile across the last 10 years. Those teams do tend to go over at about a 58% rate.
Well, and I think we've talked a lot, you and I, about the Cavs. We've done them on the podcast. We've talked about them on Spaces before. But if you're a new listener, I think it's worth reminding you that the Pythagorean thing that dropped out for them, like halfway, maybe 2/3 almost through the season, the advanced numbers, the Pythagoreans, and some of the 538.com rating, they had the Cavs as the best team in the East. Yeah. The number 1 team in the East by expected wins. And then it fell out. So it's like, okay, well, were they that good early on? Were they that bad later? Did it just even out? I don't know that we know the answer to that, but I think it's important to note how good it was early.
So the problem I think there is their overall number is minus 1.8, which means that they won fewer than they should have. Right? They should have been better based on the advanced metrics. And the trend is that those teams still go under because the line is always marked to what their Pythagorean is more closely associated to their Pythagorean.
Right.
And so what we kind of see here is your win total actually a lot of this is about the idea of you have to get out of the idea of an objective ranking and more in terms of the bookmakers and where the line gets set. And the line is being set on, they should have been better last year. So we're going to give them a little bit of a bump above where they actually were. That's where you get into trouble because once the line accounts for that.
Yeah, then you can't account for it extra as a better because it's already being accounted. Yeah. I think my point, though, is that it's possible. Like, why did they fall off so hard from where they were 2/3 of the way till the end? I think your theory is more that, well, they're overperforming. It kind of balanced out. It may be an outlier. My theory is everybody got hurt. A team that looked really good suddenly wasn't good anymore. So I guess all I mean to say is I think that the fact that they underperformed a little bit is baked in and we can't add to it. I just think that they perhaps underperformed a lot a bit and we didn't really notice it as much because they were so bad late that it even the numbers back out.
Let me turn that around. It's not necessarily that they regress back to where they should have been. I think they were that team last year. You're right that the injuries matter. This team was awesome before. Like they had a 3 big lineup, and there was a stretch there in late March where they didn't have any bigs. They had 3 of them, and we were like, "You got too many bigs," and then they didn't have any. Their injury luck was horrible. last year late in the season. It really did. It cost them a playoff berth.
Yep. Yeah.
But my thing here is actually more this. It's that being better than your record shows is not sustainable year over year.
Right.
You're more likely year over year to move back. And that I think is where the value on the under comes from. I still don't want to bet against the under. Like at 48.5, that line, if you're playing at those books, and you should have multiple books and compare them in the Action Network app. But if you're at a book and your only option for, if you're playing win totals at one book and your option's 48.5, it's definitely a stay away. 46.5, I'll lean over. I can't make it a best bet. Brandon does. You like a little bit more aggressive on this, Brandon, don't you?
I do. Yeah. And I just to add, 48.5 would probably be a stay away for me too. As much as I like the Cavs, and not because I already have the number earlier, just fresh better. That's right about in the middle of my win range. So I do like them a little bit more. I think too, we've talked a lot about Donovan Mitchell, but the reasons we like them outside of that before the trade is they should get more Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen this year. Like, I think they probably get 20% more and better versions of those guys. They're all young and improving. They only got half a season of Karis LeVert, so they should get more of him. I like the bench improvements. They'll get Rubio at some point. Robin Lopez is a big addition. They had a bunch of guys last year in the rotation who really shouldn't be getting big rotation minutes. So replacing that with competent players is big too. So if I want to caution, like if you're listening, like, well, but the number was 41 or 42, and now it's 46. Donovan Mitchell can't be worth 5 wins. Well, perhaps not. But I think our argument was the number was wrong before. It was too low before. And the perception has maybe gone too far the other way, but it was already wrong before. So the other bet that I do like here, I like the over. I'm betting it, but I'm also going to bet the division. And it's tenuous because we're going to get to the Bucks, and I know the Bucks and the division and Bud and all the things. It's a numbers play. I got plus 360 on the division at FanDuel. That's an implied 22%. I have the Cavs with this win range as about a 30% chance at winning the division. I have their ceiling as 54, like I said. I have the Bucks. When we get to them, I have their floor as like 50, 52 range. That's enough overlap that to me, it's a 1-2 punch. What I really want here is Cavs 1, Bucks 2. But that number is actually lower on DraftKings than it is just betting the division at FanDuel. So maybe when it gets closer, but it's a numbers play. I don't think it's likely because I think the Bucks are very good, but I do think it's more likely than a number. 30% to 22% is a pretty big edge, so I have to play my number.
I can't argue with that, which is annoying because I want to argue with it. I get that from a numbers perspective, it's an objectively good play. So if you like it, you are getting good return on it. It's a very Brandon play. I will absolutely never advise you to take anyone but the Milwaukee Bucks as long as Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bud are together. I will always tell you, do not take anyone but that, and that number is too steep. That's absolutely a stay away. I love your other prop though. There's a DK prop that you found, which I think actually I told you this one, but I'm going to be with you on this other prop. What do you got for the Cavs?
So my other one is you can just bet a head-to-head. And I always look, if there's a team I really like or really don't like, I check the head-to-head. Who can we compare it to? Well, who can we compare the Cavs to? How about the other team in the division? My Chicago Bulls. So you can bet the Cavs to have more head-to-head wins than the Chicago Bulls. Is minus 200. You want the Cavs, plus 150 for the Bulls. So that's implied 67% basically if you want the Cavs here. Give me the implied like 85, 90. I don't have a number for it here, but my win range for the Cavs, we're going to do the Bulls next, I think, but my entire Bulls win range is like multiple tiers below where I have Cleveland. So I don't do a lot of minus 200 type bets, but to me, you're asking a lot to go wrong and a bunch of injuries and a lot to go right for Chicago. That's why I mentioned I like the Cavs Bucks 1-2 thing or the other way. Like this to me, you love the bets where you lock in those top two and then just play both sides. This is a division to do that because I don't think Chicago is in play here.